Good morning, it's Carlos Ramirez, owner of NVSAUDIO in Roselle, New Jersey. We have a wiring rescue on this beautiful street glide that came to us from Pennsylvania. So we did his buddy's bike a couple of weeks ago. So he told me he had all good equipment on this bike. He knew he needed a wiring rescue. We need to add a DSP and he needed an NVSAUDIO tune. So as we were getting into it, we realized that the setup didn't make sense. This bike is literally impossible to tune because of the way the previous shop wired it. Now, check out what's going on here. So Saul pulled the fairing off to add the DSP. And then while he's in here, he tells me that they have capacitors wired in parallel with the speakers. I said, Saul, that's impossible. It's not the way capacitors work. But he proved it to me. They have capacitors in line with the speakers. Then I realized why they did that. Well, I have no idea why they did that. But as I start looking, the first problem I see is the amplifier is a 400.4. So I'm like, okay, let me find the other amplifier in the bike. So you guys can go through the bike along with me. So we have the 400.4 up front. We have speakers in the uppers. We have speakers in the lowers. We have Hertz mid-bass drivers, 4 ohms in this bag. I don't understand why they did that either. So there's actually a spot for the tweeter on this mount that they sold the client, but they chose to drill a hole and mount the tweeter in there instead. Okay, whatever. Doesn't make sense, but whatever. So that's a 4 ohm tweeter. That's a 4 ohm woofer. 4 ohms, 4 ohms, 4 ohms, 4 ohms. So I'm still looking for the second amplifier. 4 ohms, 4 ohms. There's the capacitor. No second amplifier. So they're running the entire bike off a JL Audio 400.4. This is a really good amplifier we would use on a car, not on a bike. The reason we wouldn't use it is you've seen all our installs, and in this same exact space, we do 1600 watts of sound digital. So where I figured they used this for the fronts and there was a different amp in the back for the bags, there was not. These are the wires from the back. So they have both woofers on a bridge channel, which would be a 2 ohm load. So let's grab our trusty meter and see what's going on. Hey, a 4 ohm load. And how did they achieve this? They ran the 4 ohm tweeters in series parallel with the woofers to get the proper load on the amp. Problem with that is it is now impossible to tune, because where we would want to band pass the woofers, the mid-bass drivers, we can't, because if we do that, then the tweeters won't play. So now we have 200 watts that comes out of this bridge channel, where we would normally run 400 watts to each woofer. We have 200 watts getting split across that woofer and that tweeter, that woofer and that tweeter, running in full range. Then the remaining 4 speakers are ran in stereo off these 2 front channels. So this bike is literally impossible to tune, impossible to make sound right. So I got to call the client. We got to pull this amplifier out, replace with 2 Sound Digital Evo X 800.4s. And these speakers are decent, but they're not marine rated. You can see no rubber boot, so water can get into the voice coil and destroy them. And another thing that bothers me, if you're going to remove the boom audio, that's a coaxial, that is a tweeter. Why are you leaving this tweeter here? If you're going to remove the boom audio, just replace the grills with the proper grills. That way you can have a nice flush look like that. So that is the way this bike should look. So you have a tweeter, it's not connected, a woofer with a tweeter in the center. Alpine Type R speakers. This is a really good coaxial speaker for a car, not for a bike. terrible. All right, so we're either gonna do some ground zero coax, some Hertz coax. Maybe we'll keep it all Hertz since he has Hertz in the bag already. So we'll do 2 Sound Digital Evo X's. We'll do 800.4 bridge to the mid bass driver, so we'll get 400 watts on each side. Then we'll use an 800.4 in stereo. But we're gonna make this right. Another mistake I found, I'm on JL Audio's website. They used a line low inverter on this bike, and it doesn't matter now because we're running a DSP, but this bike did not need a line low converter. I'm on JL Audio's website, and this amplifier has balanced differential inputs, so it can take up to 8 volts of input through the speaker lines. So all they had to do is cut an RCA and solder it onto the speaker lines, and then they could use the high quality input stage on the JL amplifier instead of using a $20 line low converter. So the amplifier was set up to take speaker level input directly from the factory radio on the bike, and I guess they weren't aware of that. Most amps that could take speaker level in, it's easy to tell they have a switch. So high means speaker level, or a high powered radio like it can with Exelon. Low means RCA. So if the speaker has a high level switch, then it probably takes speaker level inputs, and then you don't have to use one of those cheap converters. So if you're not sure, just do what I did and go on the website. It says it right there. All right, for those of you that don't know, this is the correct part number from Hog Tunes. It's the SG for Street Glide, RM grill. So this is what it looks like. If your factory grills are damaged, or if your bike came with the boom audio with this funny looking tweeter on the side, once you remove this, a lot of people think this tweeter's molded into the fairing. It's not. It's actually part of the grill. So once you pull that grill off, this grill mounts from the back and gives you that look. Simple. They're only $50, and then you don't end up looking ridiculous with 2 tweeters when only one is working. And I like them better because the boom audio grill sticks out. This one sits flush from the back, so it actually look like that. Okay, I want to show how this capacitor is wired so nobody else makes this mistake. This is a high pass filter cap, or a bass blocker, some call it. It's really smart marketing. It's a 50-cent capacitor in a fancy casing, but the math is done for you. This one has a crossover point of 6,000 hertz at 4 ohms. Part number is a BB for bass blocker, 6PR 5. So this is just a simple filtering capacitor. It's a high pass filter that you would use for a tweeter. On this bike, it was wired in parallel. You could tell because there's both sides of the cap, one side going to the positive, one side going to the negative. That is not the proper way to install these capacitors. It doesn't protect the tweeter at all, so it was basically doing nothing. So we got to go and check the tweeters. I would not be surprised if they were blown, because in order to filter high pass frequencies, this has to be installed on the positive leg of the speaker tweeter that you're trying to protect. Let me show you how to properly install this. Okay, I took it over to the test bench just to make an example. So this is the way they had it wired. This is the capacitor across the positive and the negative of the tweeter. This filters out nothing. The proper way to wire it is, you see we have the red power wire here, so that's the positive, that's the negative. So we have the red wire here, black wire here. And then down the line, we have the capacitor installed in series with the red wire. So when you hook it up to the amplifier, you have a black wire and a red wire. So this filters out everything above, everything below 6,000 hertz. So this is the right way to wire it. Or you could do it up here, where you cut this wire and put it here so the cap goes in line. This is the wrong way to wire it. This is wired across both coils. You don't want it across the coils. You want it in line with the positive wire so it flows through the capacitor, not across the capacitor. Wrong, right. Now I'm going to take it over to the RTA and show you that this one is filtering nothing. This one is blocking the base and protecting the tweeter. Okay, here we have the capacitor wired wrong. It's wired in parallel. See that? Positive, negative of the tweeter. And as you can see, there's no protection on the tweeter at all. We have 25 hertz, 400 hertz, all of it, all the way up. No protection, it's not blocking anything. So there's absolutely no protection on this tweeter. Now that we have the capacitor wired properly, you see that? At exactly 6K where it's supposed to be. So there's our reading. And here's our input. So capacitor wired in series, not across the two lines. It's wired in series, so you cut the positive wire and then the wire goes in and then back out of the capacitor is the proper way to wire it, and the tweeter is protected. It doesn't get base. Right way, wrong way. Okay, so since the capacitors on the tweeters were hooked up wrong, obviously I tested the tweeters next, and it's exactly what I expected to find. So the capacitors on the tweeter are here to protect the tweeters, so it blocks the base to keep them from blowing up. Being that the capacitor is installed this way instead of this way, the tweeters are not protected. So here's our signal generator. And that one plays. Now we'll go to the tweeter that was on the bike, and we have absolutely nothing. See? No sound. Of course, the voice coil is obliterated because you sent full range to a tweeter. I keep making these videos, and it's just stuff that I thought was common knowledge is not. So at least they put the capacitor on, but they put the capacitor on wrong. Just so whoever doesn't know, the red side, which is the positive, the capacitor goes in line with the red side. We actually sell a passive set to protect the tweeters, and because the one that comes with the tweeter is 6 decibel per octave, ours is actually 12 decibel per octave. So we had them custom built for us, high power applications. When we're running the tweeter in parallel with the mid, it protects the tweeter with a 12 decibel per octave slope. But if you're not going to use our crossovers and you are using the one that came with the tweeter, install it right. It's on the positive leg. The filter goes in line with the tweeter. So the positive from your amp through the filter to the positive side of the tweeter. The negative line just goes direct. So Saul's going to be replacing the diaphragms on these tweeters. He's going to make them new again. So he's got it back together. Now to test to make sure he put it together properly. This one's back in business. Okay, so when you remove the Boom Audio grill, the tweeter looks like it's part of the fairing, but it's not. So it cups around like that. When you remove the grill, tweeter comes with the grill. So then there's a new Hogtunes grill. Looks just like factory. Installs like so, and it gives you a beautiful, nice, clean look. And they're metal, not plastic. So you went from that to that. It's only 3 screws on the back. Uses the factory screw holes, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Drops right in. That's the factory Boom Audio. It's the new Hogtunes grill. modifying the inside of the speaker pods to get that's to get the ground zero yellow basket coaxes to fit. And Roofy's got the ground zero in there, nice and flush. After a little bit of pod modification, now he's mounting the DSP to the side panel. Look at him, he swears he's so cute. All right, and that's what's coming out. That's what's going in. So, considerable size difference. Weatherproof, non-weatherproof. Car speaker, motorcycle speaker. Okay, so we have more than double the power handling. Then we have an increased sensitivity from 88 to 92. So it's going to play louder with less power. And power is not an issue because we have more than triple the RMS power handling. So it's going to be a huge difference. This speaker is going to play louder and it's going to play lower. This speaker only plays down to 70, 80 hertz. This speaker plays down below 50 hertz. Huge improvement for the client. So Saul was trying to tune this bike and he couldn't get the bass to sound right. So he pulled off the bag and now we see why. Oh, I hate it when people do that. The bass just sounded distorted, muffled. So we're gonna go ahead and take it apart and open this up. This causes whistling and distortion and so we're gonna take care of that, get the bass sounding right. Another thing that bothers me is why did they mount the woofer in the front and steal all of the customer's storage space when you could put it back there? You put it back there, the back third of the bag leaves the whole front 2/3 of the bag. Don't get it, don't understand. When you do a single 8, the woofer belongs in the back of the bag like that, giving the customer all that storage room in the front. That's where the 8 belongs.